Can your employees do your translations? That's what we're looking at next.
Rapport International, professional translation and interpretation services.
On one hand, employees are great to do your translation. They understand the lingo of the industry, they understand your company, they're accessible, you can ask them questions. So that can be a really good resource for you to handle your translations that way. But there are some additional considerations that may even make it cost more for your employees to do your translations. Number one, is there other responsibilities are sacrificed if they're spending time doing translations? So translation is like writing. It takes about the same amount of time to translate something as it does to write it, to make sure that it's done in a quality manner that really captures the meaning. And so if you're giving translations to do to employees that are bilingual, then you're automatically taking them away from their value-added work that they're doing. So you want to take into account the lost productivity. Number two, are they fully bilingual? We had somebody review a translation that we did, and she changed a bunch of the words. And when we took it back to the professional translator, he's like, this is just wrong. This is like somebody learned Spanish in high school and tried to edit it. So here he is. He has a PhD and he quotes dictionaries at me. He's very, very qualified to do the translations. So if the person isn't fully bilingual, they're going to make mistakes. So the third one goes into cultural adaptation, is does the person completely understand both cultures, both languages, so if something doesn't work, they understand that and they can actually communicate in that. Number four, people who aren't professional translators don't know how to ask for clarification. So if they're reading something, and there could be a double meaning for that, they may not go back and say, hey, how do we want to handle this? They may just pick one meaning that may not be what you really wanted to communicate. So professional translators do know that there's a time to ask for clarification. Number five is quality control. If you've got internal employees doing the translation, who are you actually going to review it? My thought is you're better off having a professional translator do the actual translation and then have the employee review it so they can capture any company or industry terminology and make sure anything from your company or your particulars or down in the industry are really captured. And then they're doing their best value for their time, and it's a much quicker thing to do. Number six is version control. So if your employee does your translation and they have the version on their computer, what happens when somebody edits it or they don't like it? It's good to have a process in there and make sure it's reflected back, and the final versions are always captured in a specific place in a way that are reviewed by the professional translators. And then the last one is number seven, the specialty. Just as you'd never have a technical writer write your marketing material, you really want to think through who is doing the translation, because you wouldn't want a technical person doing translation if it's marketing translation, because they may miss stuff or they may tone it down rather than trying to get the marketing message that you want across. So in a professional translation agency, we spend a lot of time thinking about who the right person is to do the translation. And if you're just picking a bilingual employee to do the translation because they know the language, you could run into some issues there. Whoever you choose to do your translation, think through the ultimate cost and ROI. Number one, does it have the ability to affect your bottom line? If it's marketing materials or if it's something that could cause you pain, hire a quality trained translator that can really deliver to you so you're not affecting your bottom line poorly. Number two, think through the liability of the translation. If it's a legal contract, if it's release materials, if it's distributor agreements, think through what liability you could actually have because it could lead back to a huge legal case. And in addition, professional legal translators are going to advise you on things like if there is a question between the translation, which language is going to prevail. So these are the kind of subtleties that people can help you with if they're professional translators. Number 3, do you need it to be 100% accurate? Because if you need it 100% accurate, you want to hire a professionally trained translator that can make sure they're getting all the grammar and the punctuation and the messaging correctly, so you look good out in the marketplace. Number 4, version control. If you just go willy-nilly and have anybody do your translation, then you'll have versions all over the place. And if you need to do edits later on, it's not as simple as going back, doing the edits, and then doing the translations. You may have multiple versions, and that can cause confusion. Number 5, a lot of large companies are starting to look at translations as a return on an investment rather than a pure cost, because you can now measure with all the online marketing that we're doing as to who is going to your website and consuming the translated materials. And from that, you can see what your return is on it. And all the research is showing that people would much rather consume information in their language, their native language, even if they speak English, and they're willing to pay a premium if they can get services in that. So I hope this has been helpful. If you'd like more information, we can actually help you develop a 4x4 matrix or a 3x3 that looks at, what kind of return will you get, a low to high return, what kind of cost, high to low cost, what should go in those different categories, and then also consider, what has liability. Liability may be, high cost, low return, but if it's going to limit your liability in the future, it would be willing to do. We're always willing to talk to you about your materials and give you free advice on when you can use any of the forms of translation. Happy to help. Reach out.
If
Bye.
you found this video helpful, please share it, leave a comment, and subscribe. If you like hearing fun language and culture facts and goofs, use the link below to subscribe to our bi-monthly Tidbit newsletter. And of course, visit our website for more information or to schedule a free translation assessment.